right, Blair, this is one of my favorite topics all the time is influencers. Sometimes they come in a minute, sometimes even less than a minute, right time, right place, right whatever. Sometimes they come over a lifetime. And a story I love to tell is my first real influencer that I remember was my grandfather. He's from Kiev, my grandmother from Kiev, my mom from Kiev, and whatnot. He had an accent, and he used to take me for walks in the park in Montreal when I was 5 or 6. And one day I asked him, called him Zeta, I said, how do you know all these people that he talks to? I think that's where I talk too much from. He comes from him. He said, well, one day I smiled at somebody passing by, and he stopped and he smiled back at me, and they started talking to me. And then while we're talking, this other person walked by and saw us smiling and came over and smiled at us. And we just developed from there, friends and friends. And I understood it as a 5-year-old simply, but then I understood even more how even a smile can influence people to a great degree. It doesn't have to be some major thing. So with that, I know we've all had probably many influencers. Can you share 2 or 3 people that have been influential in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different degrees from my perspective. So, I mean, I think from a an influencer that I don't know, but really believe strongly in their thinking and their process would be Simon Sinek. I think that the
Yeah.
start with why theme, all the whole, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, is really something that resonated strongly with me, and I think is really, you know, frankly, looking back at it, why I was very successful as a salesperson at the IT company I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was really getting to know why they wanted to buy something, right? Um, and go about it in that way. And then, on the other side of things is the infinite game, right? Where, people shouldn't be playing a game to win necessarily in business. It's about perpetuating the game. And James Carsey first brought
Yeah.
that theme out. Um, but the whole misguided mentality of business being a zero-sum game, I think, has really impacted its ability to have a positive light shed on it. And I think the more we can get away from that, the better. So, yeah, Simon Sinek is certainly someone, I think is an influencer in the way of my thinking as it pertains to business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would certainly say my parents or other influencers, growing up with my mom. I mean, she was a single parent, raising me, incredibly strong, and just knowledgeable on everything. And the influence she had on me as to how to be a good person, um, was significant. Obviously, my father's been a huge influencer as it pertains to business and understanding, doing things the right way from a business perspective. Um, so everything that he's been able to impart on me has been, an incredible influence as I've, taken on more and more responsibility within the company. Um, and then, maybe a bit of a different type answer. I'd have to say my daughter. Like I would say she's probably the biggest influencer on me right now.
Right.
Um,
Does she have you around her pinky?
I mean, that's one way to look at it. But I think on the flip side of that is, it goes back to the Native American proverb that we promote quite proudly is, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And so, um, my thought in that is that everything I do, I want to ensure is done with the intent to try and leave it better for her and
Right.
for her children. And so that influence weighs pretty heavily in my, day-to-day activity. So without question, um, in addition to her perhaps having me wrapped around her little finger, she influences me in many ways and is a very strong influence in my life, to say the least.
That's probably the best rap anybody can ever have, though.
Well said.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing all that.
Absolutely.